Well, it is Good Shepherd Sunday, and so as any good priest does, I went and Googled what it was to be a shepherd. Did you know that shepherding is one of the longest standing and oldest occupations in the world? Did you guys know that? I had no idea. I had no clue. I thought it was other stuff, but yeah, shepherd's one of the oldest and longest standing things that people have done. And as I do, I went down the rabbit hole and started reading about sheep and shepherds and things. And I have been warned not to compare my congregation to sheep because sheep are stupid, apparently. So won't be doing that today. But I do want to talk about shepherds. Shepherds usually came from peasant families. They were always single, never married, never had families of their own. They tended to their flock and their flock alone. That's it. And the reason they came from peasant families was usually because they weren't to inherit any land. They weren't able to marry, and nobody wanted them, basically, because they didn't have anything to offer. It's a terrible time to be alive at this point. I thank God I'm alive in this age and not that one, or I never would have gotten Nicole. But, they show up and they take care of these flocks. It's interesting. They carry a stick that has a curve on it. We call it a crozier, and bishops carry it. They called it a crook. Not really sure why, but they'd hit this sheep with it to tend them and get them back into place, right? They lived by themselves. They lived on the land. They would build cabins or little cottages and then little pens for their sheeps. And I know that that's not the correct term, but I have the microphone and you don't. So all the sheep would hang out with the shepherd, and they'd walk around all these lands, and he'd go out and he'd, tend to back when one get lost. He'd bring them on back gently. Come on back. And when they get sick, the shepherd would take them into his own house, and he'd care for them. Sheep stink, y'all. If you've ever been around a sheep, it is not the most pleasant smelling animal. So that's the love that they're showing these shepherds. They're bringing animals in to the house to take care of them. I thank God that we do not own a sheep at my home, because that thing would never leave the house because of her. Truth? Yeah. So then I started reading about what it is that they did when predators came. Shepherds have pens for everything, and there's a gate. They can let the sheep out and let the sheep in. And usually shepherds talk to one another. They'd be like, hey, there's predators in the area. It's dangerous right now. And when that would happen, the shepherd would go out and lie down in front of the gate and sleep all night. I found that to be the most beautiful thing I think I've ever heard about a job. They're putting their life on the line, knowing that there's wolves out there, actual wolves, not like the, virtual wolves that we speak of when we're trying to be hyperbolic. No, real wolves that will attack you. And these shepherds, these young men, are laying down in front of a gate. Would you do that? You say no now. Let me ask you a few questions. Are any of you partnered? You have a spouse, have children, or have loved ones in your lives? Raise your hands, please. Would you step in front of them if danger happened? Any of you in here not lay down your life for your child? Right? Hey, grandparents, what about the grandkids? That's the 11th commandment. Thou shalt not mess with thy grandchildren. You want to piss somebody off? Talk about their grandkids. You could say whatever you want about their kids, but you go talking about the grandkids, that is the dumbest thing you will ever do in your life. Do not anger a grandparent. They are feral. They will bite you. Anybody have a spouse that they would step in front of if danger were to happen? Yeah. I'd lay down on hot coals for Nicole. I'm sure all of you would too, for Nicole and for your spouse. So if the shepherd lays down and protects the shepherd's flock by virtue of laying in front of the gate, and they're protecting their beloved flock, wouldn't that also make you shepherds? Aren't you protecting someone? Do you have kids and a family you'd do anything to protect? Anything? Makes you a shepherd, doesn't it? Would you like to know what the root word in Latin is for shepherd? Pastor. Isn't that something? Over the years, it has been my honor and a privilege to be a pastor. And sometimes we lay down or stand up in front of people, even if we get a knife in the back. And that's part of it. But it is a privilege and not a title. It is an honor and not something that is to be taken pride in and saying, look at me, I'm a priest. It's so easy to talk about the priest and Jesus during the Good Shepherd Sunday. But the reality is that we're all shepherds, aren't we? Every single one of us. If you love someone in this world who you give everything for, that makes you a shepherd. It makes you a pastor. As Romans reminds us, God sees us in secret as well as in the light. We put on good faces here at the church most of the time. You want to come in, you want to put on your good face. Somebody asks you, how you doing? Oh, I'm fine. You might be hurting though, right? Might be going through some troubles. Might be mad. You're just mad and you don't know why. Could be going through depression. You could be going through some of the hardest times in your life. And if you're not talking to your flock, then you're not letting them be a shepherd, are you? On the same token, if somebody comes in and sits in a chair and you can see that they need something, the first response shouldn't be, who is that? It should be, here I am, how can I help? Right? The church isn't a place to come and be a pen in which we all just get to be smelly animals together. It's a place where we get to come and congregate and follow one another and learn from one another and be shepherded and also shepherd, to be pastored and also to pastor, and then to take that out into the world. Jesus Christ laid down his life for the world. We say that a lot, but now that I've talked about your kids, again, I want to remind you, would you give your life for your kids? Would you give your life for your spouse, for your mom, for anybody that you loved? You said yes, right? Jesus Christ did that for everybody, and they killed him for it. That's the love of God. That's what a good shepherd is. A good shepherd doesn't need anything other than the knowledge that they love whom they were sent to protect and save. I hope we want to be those people out in the world, just like we are at coffee hour. I hope we want to be the loving people who are willing to lay down our own pride, our own selfish desires, and look at our neighbors and say, here I am, I have been sent. How can I help you? How can I pray for you? How can I be with you when you're hurting? How can I jump on home base when we score victory? That we don't get so caught up in our own lives and our own miseries that we forget that the people next to us are suffering too. It's easy to do, isn't it? It's easy to go ahead and put blinders on for the rest of the world when our pain is so deep. But we are still shepherds even in those dark moments. We are still accountable to one another. We are still here for one another. We're here to lead and we're here to follow at the same time. We'll probably end up running circles around each other, and that's okay, because we're going to do it joyfully. I want to be a good man. I want to be a good pastor. And I know you do too. And I know that's what Jesus wants for all of us. Amen.